Hello there guys, RMP792 here. So, as I said last week, I am going to try, my shadows are a bit dodgy, oh well, it'll do. I'm going to try my level best to, nope, can't do anything about that, okay. Yes, I'm going to try my level best to do, at least a little vlog or something, maybe hopefully once a week. So I'm going to try and get them out on Monday, but, fate is a fickle bitch, so if they end up not coming out, I apologise in advance, but again, as I said last time, I make no promises about getting these out regularly. It's just going to be when I can squeeze them in and when I have something that I think is worth talking about. So, as you will already know if you've read the title of this one, today I'm going to talk about Attack on Titan. And I want to preface this by saying a couple of things. First, I have only seen up until the end of Season 1. That's because Season 2 isn't on UK Netflix yet, and I'm not even entirely sure if they've finished showing it in the States yet. So any Season 2 spoilers in the comment section will get your ass banned. With that said, because I'm going to be talking Season 1 spoilers, anything you want to talk about regarding Season 1 in the comment section, absolute fair game, have at it. Fair enough? Okay. As some of you who've been fans of the channel are probably aware, I'm not exactly an anime fan, which I know is a bit weird given a lot of the games that went up on the channel. But that was mostly due to requests, not due to my own personal taste. I enjoyed probably about half of the ones I got requests for. But I freely admit anime really isn't my genre. At one point somebody asked me what the last anime I watched was. At that time, the answer to the question was, at university several years ago, I got a bit nostalgic and rewatched all of the first series of Digimon. Yeah, so that's about the level of anime fan you're dealing with. So I'm not going to be talking about this as an anime, I'm just going to be talking about it as a TV show. Fair enough? Okay. So Attack on Titan has this reputation for being absolutely brilliant and amazing and the best thing ever and so on and so forth. And I want to preface this by saying that, in my opinion, it is good but deeply flawed. And the weird thing is that its single biggest flaw is that it's too short. And I don't mean that, I want Season 2 to hurry up and come along immediately. I'm talking on an episode-by-episode basis. Because each episode is only about 23-24 minutes long, once you factor in the previously on, the next time, the opening credits and the closing credits, you're lucky if you get 17-18 minutes of new footage per episode. And because they've got quite a lot of plot and events to cram in, that means that all the character development goes completely by the wayside. If each episode was about twice as long, it would be a significantly better show because you'd actually have time to establish characters and make us feel for them a bit more than they do. My prime example of this is, and again, spoilers right from the start, so if you haven't seen it, don't watch this if you plan to. But my prime example of this is Marco, who I had to look up his name before I started recording this. Because the thing about... I am talking about Marco. The thing about Marco is that his death, the first time I watched it, because I have seen it twice, didn't register at all because I didn't really know who the hell he was. Rewatching it, I was like, oh, that's Marco. That's the guy whose death they try to make a big deal out of. Well, that was a nice 2 scenes he was in. Yeah. Again, because this show basically has character numbers on par with Game of Thrones at times. But because so few of them are given enough time to grow and develop and be appreciated, their deaths don't have terribly much impact. And I suspect this is all animation budget. And let's face it, the animation for the show is gorgeous. I'm not even going to debate this. I mean, I'm not a fan of the way that most anime draw people, but this show, it really, really looks good. The actual designs on the Titans are suitably sort of sinister. And the animation style is really, really good. Even in the moments when they're kind of clearly saving money on sort of big panning shots by not having any animation in them. So it basically just looks almost like a still painting. Those look really, really good. So I have absolutely no complaints about the animation. The animation is gorgeous. But I suspect part of the reason for that is that they spend a lot of budget making it look good, which means they can't have as much of it. So yeah, you only really get about 16 to 17 minutes of new footage per episode, which just is not long enough for the story they're trying to tell. We need more episodes where it is purely character development, and there just isn't time for that with everything going on. And again, the Levi Squad. I can remember them as the Levi Squad, but I can't remember any of their names. And now that they've all been horribly, horribly killed, and again, it needed more time to establish them as awesome badasses before it killed them. And don't get me wrong, the little bits we see of them, they're awesome badasses. But we needed to see more. Other side note, I haven't read the manga that this is based on. I don't think I've read a manga ever. So if these aren't problems in that, I'm just talking purely about the show, not about the original source material. If the original source material handles it better, great. I wouldn't know, I haven't read it. Just wanted to clear that up. But yeah, that really is this show's single biggest problem, in that each episode needs to be about twice as long for it to be really a great show. As it stands, it's a good one. Now, I appreciate some people okay. While that's my single biggest complaint, honestly, and let's be honest, when your single biggest complaint is, I want more of it, indicates that it's quite good. So I'm going to talk about the stuff I like. As I say, the designs of the Titans themselves are suitably sort of creepy. The way they move is quite creepy, even if some of the abnormals do look completely ridiculous when they run. Looking at you, Mr. Flaley. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah. In terms of the whole sort of slightly steampunky aesthetic, where they've got cannons and stuff like that, and then they've got the ODN gear. The ODN gear is really cool. In that they are basically sort of flying around by using jets of gas and swinging, which is a pretty neat idea, and it's also quite interesting to see the way they operate when they're beyond the wall and they don't have the buildings to operate off of. So unless they can get to a big forest, then they're in serious trouble fighting on open ground. That's pretty cool. I'm 99% sure the physics of the ODN gear wouldn't work, because they do seem to use it like it allows them to actually fly a lot of the time, and they can jump redonkulous distances, but let's just assume they all went to leg day at the gym. Also, some of those, when they're having conversations while sprinting at full speed, and you're like, nope, not doable. Especially when those rooftops seem shockingly long, given how long some of those conversations were. But again, that's all dramatic license, and that's fine. I'm nitpicking when I criticize stuff like that. The fight scenes, where they're actually trying to take down Titans, are again pretty damn awesome. And the show does do a very good job of establishing the rules of Titan fighting. Insofar as you've got to go for the nape, pretty much anything else they'll regenerate from. I'm assuming if you can decapitate them, and take out the nape as you do it, that's obviously, that presumably takes them out. Because, they have implied you can bring them down with sustained cannon fire if you throw enough cannon shells at them. But that's a little vague, but that's my assumption based on what we do see. And incidentally, the nape thing has got to be something related to the whole people turning into Titans thing, given that whenever a person becomes a Titan, their normal body, their real physical body, which is inside and controlling the Titan, is positioned at the nape. So there's obviously some connecting tissue there. And again, this has probably been answered in the manga by now, but I don't want to know the answer. I'm spitballing here. Because this show is one of those kinds of shows that does leave a lot of questions unanswered and clearly wants more seasons in order to actually tell them, which is fine. The sort of reveal at the end of the season that the wall appears to be actually made from Titans is interesting. kind of terrifying, which implies that either somebody controlled a bunch of Titans to get them to build it, or they built it using Titan corpses, except the Titan corpses don't hang around for terribly long, so they all sort of burn off. The whole Titans don't actually need to eat us for food, they're just doing it for funsies to all intents and purposes, is suitably horrifying. And it is very much a show that remembers that, yeah, being eaten is pretty much the most terrifying thing that happens to a human being. It's right there in the primordial brain that we really don't want to get eaten. So, again, well done for that. Characters. I'll kind of talk about effectively the big three characters. And then the rest I'll give vague overviews of, because, again, there's bleeding hundreds of characters in this show. So, I'll be honest, Eren Yeager is a prick. I do not like Eren at all. To the point where I was actually giggling in episode 5, episode 6? Basically the point at which he goes, yes, finally I get to kill a Titan! And the first one he actually encounters bites his leg off, and I'm just like, well, that went well, dipstick. So, yeah, that was pretty funny. But of course he then, grows his arm and leg back and proceeds to kick their asses in his Titan form, which I'll freely admit, the first time he turned up, I was like, what the hell? Because I deliberately, in spite of the fact I was watching it with my girlfriend, who kept, dropping plot spoilery hints, because she's, a massive fan of it to the point where, anyway, that's not relevant. But yeah, she kept sort of dropping hints. But I'd mostly managed to avoid going in knowing too much about it beyond the basic setup. So yeah, and again, his Titan form is pretty cool. I like the fact that you can almost always tell when it's a human in Titan form, because they all look very, very different. They're still recognizably Titans, but they are, unique-looking Titans, and that is a good thing. So yeah, Eren is easily my least favourite character. Mikasa is a little dull because, she's kind of got that whole stoic, I will do anything for him, yada 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 thing, and everybody keeps assuming they're, in love and a couple. I'm really hoping they don't actually go that route, because frankly it's more interesting as just a kind of, bond forged in the fire of service and battle kind of thing, which I find more interesting than yet another romance, because I've seen romance. It's a different kind of relationship, and that's actually nice to see. So again, I'm hoping they don't end up turning it into a romance, but we'll see. Let's face it, if Mikasa should end up with anybody, it's Levi, given that they are basically the same person. But anyway, and then Armin, who reacts to this situation pretty much as I would, i.e. pissing himself in terror the second he gets near anything that's liable to kill him. And yeah, the fact that Armin basically just freezes and can't do crap because he is ultimately just terrified of this stuff, again, that's good and interesting to see, because you don't see that terribly much from main characters. Minor side characters, sure. Main characters, almost never. So that's very much a different kind of thing. And, it's a thing that really tries to show the horror of war. Now, it's doing it through a fantasy situation, but it is doing a good job. You've got the bit during the siege of, I can't remember the name of the city, but the one at the second wall that they get into. Is it Trost? Yeah, I think that's Trost. Anyway, and you've got the guys who are kind of bunkered down in the fort, and they know that the Titans are going to get in eventually, and one guy just casually loads this musket, sticks it in his mouth, and blows his own head off. And yeah, that's the way some people would react. And you've got the people who joined, in order specifically to get to the military police and get the hell away from the outer wall. Again, that's the kind of thing that people would do, because, I would like to remind you all of this, people suck. People are just the worst. And everybody's reason for actually ending up joining the Scouts is kind of dumb. You've got Eren and his revenge bender, which at least he's got, the Titan powers, so it makes sense. Mikasa at least has the skill to be there. Armin, while he definitely has a good brain, the Scouts is not the right place for him because he's going to get horribly killed. He's got main character shields, which is how he's lasted this long, but I can genuinely see Armin getting killed at some point. But, and John joining up because, he's trying to honour Marco's legacy. Again, this would have been a really good kind of character development thing if the characters had actually had enough screen time to be established and to develop properly, and yada, 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 and back to my previous complaint. But, it's definitely a show that's built on mysteries, which is fine. Because we have no idea what the hell is going on with these human titans. I mean, how the hell do they do that? Because it's not like they're a Tyranid, for example, which is gaining biomass and using that to transform. Then they're pulling Titan forms out of their proverbial arses here. And while we know that Titans are, to all intents and purposes, solar powered, because that's what crazy scientist woman whose name I can't remember, basically says that she's figured out by, if you deprive them of sunlight for a few days at a time, they die. And they obviously don't actually need to eat humans for food, and they don't bother eating anything else. Then, we know. How the hell do you absorb that much solar energy in order to effectively? I mean, they are generating mass, and for anybody who understands the physics of that, it's not. Okay, yeah, it's possible to generate mass from energy, but the amount of energy you need is horrifying. So to generate something the size of a Titan, even just one of those normal sort of 5 to 6 meter jobbies, is obscene. Let alone something the size of the Colossal. And I mean, the Colossal is clearly another human form Titan, given the way it appears and vanishes. The question, of course, being, do we know who the Colossal is? Have we met them in the same way that we knew who, in the same way that you could figure out who the female Titan was, by process of elimination, namely how many other female characters are left at this point and which one of them was blonde. Which, again, more time on character development, especially as we hadn't seen Annie for a while. Having her suddenly turn up again, I was like, oh, right. Incidentally, is the implication meant to be that Annie killed Marco? Because we never see him die, they're never entirely sure what killed him, and she had his ODN gear. Now, she could have nicked it after the battle, which is entirely possible, but it's also entirely possible that she killed him for some reason. And we still have no idea what the hell her motivation was for doing what she did. Again, questions, which we will hopefully get answers to later, which, again, I'm fine with. Side note, I still think the funniest bit of the final fight is just all those guys praying in the church about how the wall will protect them, and then they just get flattened by a Titan. Yeah, cults. Cults are always fun. But no, do I have anything else particular to say? No, I think that really does sum up my main points, which are basically good show, would be a great show if they could somehow get double the animation budget and basically make 40-minute episodes, or hell, an episode that was actually 30 minutes long would probably be fine. Plus credits and everything else, rather than I did count it at one point where I basically went, okay, so the credits end here, and then the next set of credits begin here. Yeah, 16 minutes. I can't remember which episode number that was, but that summed up the show to me. Which is how come you also get effectively the overarching arcs where you've got Siege of it is Siege of Trost, isn't it? Parts sort of 1 through 6 or 1 through 7 or whatever it was. Which is fine. I don't mind them doing long arcs like that. But again, more time in the individual episodes is kind of needed. So yeah. Was there anything else? Oh yeah, music. The music's really good. With that said, I vastly prefer the opening credits music for the first half of the season to the one for the second half of the season. I have no idea what they're saying because they're mostly singing in Japanese and or German, but there it is. I am aware that there was a live-action adaptation movie, which by all accounts is terrible. Based on what I've read, I haven't seen it. I've seen the trailers, but yeah, the general comments is it ain't good. But the show itself is enjoyable. I will be watching season 2 when it becomes available on UK Netflix, and I'll probably talk about that then. So yeah, until then, thank you very much for watching, and I'll hopefully, assuming I can, keep up the pace, I will see you in future videos.